All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're going deep on something that's got the whole blockchain world buzzing. Chainlink's cross-chain interoperability protocol.
CCIP, for those in the know.
Right, CCIP, exactly. We've gotten a ton of requests to do a deep dive on this, and it's no surprise why. We're talking about potentially revolutionizing how blockchains interact.
Yeah, the idea of different blockchains seamlessly communicating and sharing data. It's a pretty big deal.
No kidding. And it's not just about tech geeks getting excited about more efficient code. This could change how we use blockchains in our everyday lives.
Exactly. Think about all the possibilities, like imagine your favorite crypto game connecting with players on a totally different blockchain.
Or your DeFi investments just flowing between chains to find the best yields. No more getting stuck in one ecosystem.
And it goes even further than just moving tokens around. CCIP aims to enable all sorts of interactions, like sending messages between chains, even building applications that span multiple blockchains.
Okay, color me intrigued. So we've got the Chainlink CCIP documentation right here, our roadmap for this deep dive. Let's break it down. What exactly is CCIP? What makes it so special?
Well, at its core, you can think of CCIP as this universal bridge, right? It's designed to make token transfers, sending messages, even developing applications across different blockchains, all of that possible.
Like a universal translator for the blockchain world.
Exactly, creating a common language that all these different blockchain ecosystems can understand and use to interact with each other.
I like it. But let's be real. Blockchain isn't exactly known for being user-friendly. So what are the actual benefits here? Will everyday people even notice this, or is it more of a behind-the-scenes thing?
Oh no, users are definitely going to feel the difference. Imagine transferring tokens between blockchains being as easy as, say, sending an email.
Okay, now you're talking.
Right. No more waiting forever for confirmations, no more crazy high fees. CCIP is designed to make these transfers super smooth, fast, and most importantly, affordable.
That's a huge EE step forward from where we are now, for sure.
Mm.
But what really caught my eye in the documentation was this idea of programmable token transfers. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It might sound futuristic, but it's actually very practical. Think of it this way. You can send your tokens with specific instructions attached. So, for example, let's say you want to lend your crypto on a different blockchain.
Okay.
With CCIP, you can program the loan to automatically repay itself using the yield generated by the borrower. Minimizes your risk. Pretty cool, huh?
Okay, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
That's way more sophisticated than just sending tokens back and forth. But of course, with anything like this, the big question is security. How does CCIP ensure that all these transfers and instructions are actually safe?
Well, that's where their defense in-depth approach comes in. They've basically built a fortress around these transfers with multiple layers of security.
Okay, that sounds reassuring. But give me some specifics. What kind of layers are we talking about here?
First off, CCIP is built on Chainlink's existing Oracle networks. Those already have a really strong reputation for security and reliability.
Right.
But they didn't stop there. They added a dedicated risk management network. It's like a watchdog, constantly on the lookout for anything suspicious.
So if someone tries to pull something shady, this risk management network swoops in and stops them.
Exactly. It can spot unusual activity, like, let's say, a massive transfer that deviates from the norm, and halt the transaction to prevent any exploits.
That's pretty impressive. Anything else in their security arsenal?
Yep, they also use transfer rate limits. Think of it like speed limits, but for tokens. The token issuer sets these limits to control how much value can be moved within a certain time frame.
So even if someone did manage to slip past one security layer, these rate limits would prevent them from draining all the funds at once.
You got it. It's all about limiting potential damage and giving token issuers more control over their assets.
All right, starting to see how they're trying to cover all the bases. But let's shift back to the user experience for a second. We've talked about these token transfers, but can CCIP handle more than just that? What about those complex interactions we talked about earlier?
You're right. Token transfers are essential, but CCIP can do a lot more. It also allows what's called arbitrary messaging between blockchains.
Arbitrary messaging. Sounds pretty vague. What does that actually mean, practically speaking?
Basically, it means different blockchains can send each other any kind of information they need. Imagine a decentralized exchange, a DETH, operating on multiple chains.
Okay.
With CCIP, they can synchronize data, like pricing, to make sure everything is consistent across platforms, prevents things like arbitrage opportunities, keeps everything running smoothly.
So it's not just about moving tokens, it's about connecting these blockchain ecosystems at a much deeper level.
Exactly. And that's just one example. Arbitrary messaging opens up a whole world of possibilities for truly interconnected applications that take advantage of multiple blockchains' strengths.
All right, my head's already spinning with possibilities here. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's take a step back and talk about how all this works in practice. The documentation mentions something called token pool contracts. What's their role in all this?
Ah, yes, token pool contracts. These are essentially the engine room of CCIP's token transfer system. They handle all the intricacies of moving tokens between chains, whether it's through a burn and mint mechanism.
Hold on, burn and mint. Not sure I follow that one. Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. Imagine a token disappearing on one chain and reappearing on another, like magic. That's essentially burn and mint. The original token gets destroyed or burned on the first chain, and an equivalent token is created, minted, on the destination chain.
So it's like teleportation for tokens.
Exactly. And CCIP provides these pre-audited token pool contracts to handle the entire process. Makes it super easy for developers to integrate cross-chain transfers into their applications.
So developers don't have to build everything from scratch every single time.
Nope. They can plug right into CCIP and leverage these existing secure contracts. Saves everyone time and hassle, plus reduces the risk of errors.
Smart. And I'm guessing the token issuers, the folks who created the tokens in the first place, they still have control over all this.
Absolutely. They retain full control over their token pool contracts, so they have the final say in how their tokens are managed and transferred.
Makes sense. It's their token, after all. But let's dive a bit deeper into how developers actually use CCIP. The documentation really emphasizes the simplicity and ease of integration. Can you give us a glimpse into what that looks like?
Well, one of the key things about CCIP is it provides a single standardized interface for all these cross-chain interactions. So developers don't need to learn a whole new set of tools for every blockchain they want to work with.
Ah, so it's like a universal plug-and-play system for cross-chain functionality. That's a huge improvement over the current situation, where developers often have to create custom solutions for each individual blockchain.
You got it. And this standardized approach not only makes development simpler, but it also makes the whole process more secure.
Less complexity, fewer errors, and a more secure system. Sounds like a win-win all around. But I'm curious about those transfer rate limits we were talking about earlier. Are those something that developers need to code into their applications, or is that handled somewhere else?
That's a great question, and it highlights one of the really innovative aspects of CCIP. These rate limits aren't something developers need to worry about on an application level. They're managed directly by the token issuer through the token pool contract.
Oh, interesting. So it's like a built-in safety feature that's already baked into the system. Developers don't have to reinvent the wheel every time they want to implement those security measures.
Exactly. And this approach not only streamlines development, but also ensures consistency. The same security standards are applied across all applications and integrations, regardless of the specific use case.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, from token transfers to arbitrary messaging and these token pool contracts. But before we move on to exploring real-world applications, is there anything else we need to know about how CCIP itself functions?
We've touched on most of the key components, but there's one aspect we haven't discussed yet that's crucial for the security and reliability of the whole system: the consensus mechanism.
Ah, yes, consensus, the heartbeat of any blockchain.
Yeah.
But how does it work in the context of CCIP, which is designed to connect multiple blockchains, each potentially with its own consensus mechanism?
That's where things get really interesting. CCIP doesn't rely on a single centralized consensus mechanism. Instead, it uses a network of independent nodes to validate and confirm transactions across different chains.
Okay, so these nodes act as a sort of distributed network of trust that underpins the entire CCIP ecosystem. But how do they actually reach consensus when they're operating across different blockchains with potentially different rules and protocols?
Well, that's the beauty of CCIP's design. It incorporates something called a threshold signature scheme. Essentially, transactions only go through when a certain number of these nodes, spread across different blockchains, have independently verified and approved them.
So it's a bit like a distributed jury system, ensuring that no single blockchain or group of nodes can control the whole system. That's reassuring. But I'm still wondering how these nodes actually communicate and coordinate their actions across all these different blockchain ecosystems.
That's where Chainlink's expertise with Oracle technology comes into play. They've developed this really sophisticated communication protocol that allows these nodes to securely share information and synchronize their actions, even across very different blockchain environments.
Okay, so it's a combination of decentralized consensus, these threshold signatures, and secure communication protocols that keeps the whole system running smoothly and securely. It sounds complex, but it seems like they've really thought through the potential challenges.
Oh, they've definitely done their homework, and that's what makes me confident in CCIP's potential to truly change how we think about and interact with blockchains.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see how all this plays out in the real world. But before we get too carried away with dreaming about the future, we need to take a step back. When we come back, we'll explore some of the really exciting use cases and real-world applications that are already taking advantage of what CCIP offers.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were really getting into the nitty-gritty of how CCIP works, all the technical details.
It's complex stuff, but super fascinating. But I'm ready to see how this actually plays out in the real world. The documentation mentions some really interesting use cases. Where do you see CCIP having the biggest impact?
One area that jumps out is decentralized finance, DeFi.
DeFi, right?
Yeah, CCIP could really supercharge DeFi because it allows these different blockchain ecosystems to interact so seamlessly.
DeFi is already pretty complicated for a lot of people. Can you give me an example, like how would this actually affect someone who's just getting started with DeFi?
Sure, so imagine you're lending out your crypto on a platform built on, say, Ethereum. But then you find out there's another platform on a different chain, maybe Solana, that's offering a way better interest rate.
Right, right.
Right now, moving your assets between those chains is a pain.
Tell me about it. High fees, slow transactions, and don't even get me started on the security risks. It's enough to make you want to just stick with one chain.
Exactly. But with CCIP, moving your crypto between those lending platforms could be as easy as clicking a button. You could just chase the best yields across different chains, no problem.
That would be huge for DeFi users. Suddenly, the whole ecosystem becomes way more accessible and efficient.
Exactly. And it's not just about moving assets back and forth either. CCIP could enable more complex interactions, like using tokens from one chain as collateral for a loan on another chain.
So, like, my Ethereum tokens could back a loan on Solana.
Exactly. And those programmable token transfers we were talking about,
Yeah?
they could even automate these DeFi interactions. So you could set up a system where your loan is automatically repaid from the yield your collateral is generating.
Wow, that's pretty smart. It's like setting your DeFi portfolio on autopilot across multiple chains.
Exactly. CCIP opens up this whole new level of automation and sophistication for DeFi that just wouldn't be possible with how fragmented things are now.
Okay, so DeFi is a big one. What other areas could be disrupted by CCIP?
Another area is gaming. Think about it. Right now, blockchain games are usually limited to their own specific blockchain. It creates these isolated communities.
Yeah, it's like having all these separate online worlds with no way to travel between them.
Exactly. But with CCIP, we could have truly cross-chain games where players from different blockchains can interact, compete, even trade assets with each other seamlessly.
That sounds amazing. Imagine a tournament where players from Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, all battling it out in the same game.
Exactly. It would completely change blockchain gaming. Massive interconnected communities, huge potential for developers. It's exciting.
So DeFi and gaming are the obvious frontrunners. What about something a little less obvious? The documentation mentions cross-chain governance. That one really caught my attention.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. We're talking about the ability for decentralized organizations, or DAOs, to make decisions that affect multiple blockchains.
Right, DAOs. They're already doing some incredible things with decentralized decision-making, but they're often stuck operating on a single chain.
Exactly. Think about a DAO that wants to launch a new product or service on multiple chains. Right now, they'd have to go through separate governance processes on each chain.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare, especially for large, ambitious DAOs.
Right. But with CCIP, they could potentially have one unified governance system
Okay.
where votes cast on one chain are automatically recognized on all the other chains involved.
So it streamlines everything, creates more cohesive DAOs. They can operate across multiple blockchains.
Exactly. It highlights how CCIP can not only connect different blockchains, but also foster much greater collaboration across the whole decentralized landscape.
It's not just about the tech. It's about how we organize and interact in this new world. But we've talked a lot about potential. Are there any actual projects using CCIP right now to build these cool solutions?
Oh, absolutely. One example is Synapse. It's a cross-chain communication protocol.
Snaps.
Yeah, they're using CCIP to transfer tokens and data between different blockchain
It's
ecosystems.
like bridging these isolated blockchain islands.
Exactly. And they're not just doing basic token transfers, they're also building tools for cross-chain messaging and data sharing, which opens up all kinds of new possibilities for developers.
That's awesome. Any other projects out there pushing the boundaries with CCIP?
Another one to keep an eye on is Maverick Protocol. They're a decentralized exchange,
Okay.
and they're using CCIP to build a cross-chain liquidity network so users can trade assets across different blockchain ecosystems seamlessly.
A cross-chain DX. That's
Yeah.
huge. Most DX is stuck on a single blockchain, which limits liquidity and trading options.
Right. Maverick Protocol wants to change that. They're using CCIP to pool liquidity from different chains, creating a much deeper and more efficient trading environment.
It's like creating one giant marketplace for digital assets, no matter what blockchain they're on.
Exactly. It really shows how CCIP can break down those barriers between blockchain communities and encourage more collaboration and innovation.
All right, we've covered a lot, from the inner workings of CCIP to its potential to change DeFi, gaming, governance, everything. But like with any new tech, there are bound to be some bumps in the road. What are some of the things you'll be watching as CCIP evolves?
One thing that's crucial is adoption. For CCIP to really take off, it needs to be embraced by both developers and blockchain projects.
Right, it's that network effect. The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes for everyone.
Exactly. And it's not just about how many projects use CCIP, but also the variety of those projects. We need to see it being used in all sorts of different industries and applications to really prove its versatility.
So building a diverse ecosystem around CCIP is key.
Right. Another challenge is going to be security, making sure the CCIP network stays secure and reliable as it grows.
Right, because as more projects come on board, the potential attack surface gets bigger.
Exactly. Chainlink and the whole CCIP community need to be super vigilant about identifying and addressing potential vulnerabilities.
Security is paramount in this space, especially when we're talking about moving so much value between chains.
Absolutely. And then there's also the whole issue of standards for cross-chain communication. Ideally, we want to see common standards emerge, making it easier for different blockchains to interact.
So it's not just about CCIP itself. It's about creating a more interoperable and collaborative environment across the entire blockchain space.
Exactly. CCIP can be a big part of that movement toward greater interoperability, but it's going to take a collective effort from the whole community to establish those standards.
Well, it sounds like there's still a lot to figure out, but it's definitely an exciting time for blockchain. CCIP has clearly kicked off a wave of innovation, but there's still challenges ahead, important conversations to be had.
I agree. It's still early days, but CCIP is a big piece of the puzzle. It could really usher in a new era of collaboration and innovation in the blockchain world.
I'm definitely eager to see how it all unfolds, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you think our listeners should know about CCIP? Any final thoughts?
I think the most important takeaway is that CCIP represents a fundamental shift in how we think about blockchains. It's not about these isolated ecosystems anymore. It's about building a truly interconnected web of value and information that can flow freely between different chains.
It's like we're witnessing the birth of a global blockchain network.
Exactly. And with that thought in mind, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll zoom out a little and discuss what CCIP could mean for the future of blockchain technology as a whole.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been on quite the journey today, exploring all the ins and outs of CCIP.
Yeah, from the technical details to its potential to really shake things up across different industries.
It's been fascinating. And before the break, we were talking about how the implications of CCIP go way beyond just the tech itself. It's really a whole new way of thinking about blockchains.
It really is a potential paradigm shift. And, we've discussed specific use cases, but I'm curious about the bigger picture. What does a future where all these blockchains can seamlessly talk to each other actually look like? What kind of world are we building here?
That's a big question. Right now, it feels like we have all these separate blockchain universes, each with their own rules and communities.
Exactly. It's a very siloed landscape. But with CCIP, those walls start to come down. We could see a future where developers can easily create applications that leverage the best parts of multiple blockchains.
And users could move their assets and data freely between chains, choosing the platforms and services that work best for them.
Exactly. It's like we're moving towards a true internet of blockchains, where value and information can flow freely across different networks.
That's a great way to put it. And all this interconnectedness could lead to a huge wave of innovation, right? Developers would have access to way more resources and talent.
Absolutely. We might even see entirely new types of applications and services emerge, things we can't even imagine right now.
So it's not just about making what we have now a bit better, it's about opening up a whole new world of possibilities. What are some of those possibilities that have you the most excited?
One area that I'm particularly excited about is Web3, the decentralized internet. Right now, Web3 is still very much in its early stages, and one of the biggest challenges it faces is the lack of interoperability.
It's like trying to build a decentralized internet with all these disconnected pieces.
Yeah.
Hard to see the full potential when everything's so fragmented.
Exactly. But CCIP could be the key. It could enable these different Web3 platforms and applications to seamlessly communicate and share data.
So we could finally start to realize that vision of a truly interconnected and decentralized web, one that's free from the control of any single entity.
Precisely. And it goes beyond just the technical aspects, too. CCIP could also encourage much greater collaboration between different blockchain communities.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we could see more joint ventures, shared initiatives, even mergers of existing ecosystems. All those barriers to interaction would start to disappear.
So it's as much about bringing people together as it is about connecting technology.
Exactly. A CCIP could help create a more collaborative and inclusive blockchain space where different communities can learn from each other and build the future together.
It's an inspiring thought to think about all the positive ripple effects CCIP could have. But let's step back for a second and be realistic. We've talked a lot about the potential upsides, but are there any potential downsides or risks that we should be aware of?
That's a really important question. Every technological advancement comes with its own set of challenges, and CCIP is no exception.
So what are some of the things we should be watching out for as CCIP becomes more widely used?
Well, one potential risk is the centralization of power. Even though CCIP itself is designed to be decentralized, its success ultimately depends on the support of major players in the blockchain space.
Because if a small group of big players end up controlling most of the CCIP network, they could potentially exert too much influence over its development.
Exactly. So it'll be essential to make sure that the governance of CCIP remains decentralized and transparent, with a diverse group of stakeholders having a say.
Right, we don't want to just recreate the same power structures we're trying to move away from with blockchain technology.
Exactly. Another challenge is going to be security, managing security across all these interconnected blockchain ecosystems.
Because as more chains and applications connect, the potential for attacks increases.
Right. A vulnerability in one blockchain could potentially affect the entire CCIP network if it's not addressed properly. Ongoing research and development into cross-chain security is going to be essential.
It's like building a bridge between islands. The stronger each individual island is, the more resilient the bridge becomes.
Exactly. And finally, we also need to think about the regulatory implications of a more interconnected blockchain landscape. Blockchain regulation is still very much in its early stages, and there's a lot of uncertainty about how different countries will approach it.
Yeah, and as CCIP allows for more cross-border movement of assets and data, it's likely to attract more attention from regulators.
Exactly. So navigating the legal and regulatory landscape will be key to ensuring the long-term success of CCIP. It's going to require collaboration between developers, policymakers, and the whole blockchain community.
Sounds like there's a lot to consider as we move towards this more interconnected future for blockchain. But even with all the challenges, the potential benefits are still pretty incredible.
I completely agree. CCIP represents a big step towards a more open, collaborative, and accessible blockchain ecosystem. It's an exciting time to be a part of this space.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from the technical details of CCIP to its potential to revolutionize various industries, and even its impact on the future of blockchain as a whole. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing to remember is that CCIP is not just a technology, it's a catalyst for change. It has the potential to break down barriers, foster collaboration, and spark a whole new wave of innovation in the blockchain space. The future of blockchain is about building a truly interconnected and decentralized world, and CCIP is a crucial part of making that vision a reality.
That's a fantastic point. So to all our listeners out there, don't just sit back and watch, get involved. Experiment, build, and help shape the future of blockchain interoperability. And until next time, happy diving.